Hi guys! So let me welcome you to the part 4 of our lecture video on shareholders equity. So this time we will focus on accounting for dividends. Now, what are dividends? Dividends are distributions of earnings or capital to the shareholders. So yung source ng dividends natin can either be earnings or contributed capital. So based on this definition, we can categorize dividends into two categories. Number one, dividends out of earnings. Then, second, dividends out of capital. Pag sinabi nating dividends out of earnings, ang magiging source niya would be unappropriated retained earnings. Okay. For retained earnings, that will be the next part of our lecture video. Pero sa ngayon, ang alam muna natin, meron tayong tinatawag na unappropriated retained earnings. Pag sinabi nating unappropriated retained earnings, those are unrestricted retained earnings. Okay? Next, ano naman ang source ng dividends out of capital? That is, contributed capital naman. What are the different classifications of dividends out of earnings? Nandiyan si, number 1, cash dividends, property dividends, SCRIP dividends, share dividends. Then, pag dividends out of capital naman, iisang klase lang yan ng dividends. That is, liquidating dividends. Now, ang focus natin dito would be dividends out of earnings. Dividends out of capital, hindi ko na yan i-cover. Hanggang dito lang si dividends out of capital. Okay? Sige. So, let's focus on dividends out of earnings. Now, what would be the share basis for dividends? Or, in other terms, ano ba ang magiging basis na number of shares para makompute ang mga dividends? The answer? That should be based on outstanding shares or number of outstanding shares. Ano components ng outstanding shares? Number of shares issued plus number of shares subscribed plus number of shares dividends distributable. Mamaya may encounter ulit natin yan. Then minus number of shares in the treasury. And that forms your number of shares outstanding. Tatandaan nyo lang, ang magiging basis natin for dividends would be number of shares outstanding, not number of shares issued. Gets? Okay. Essential dates. Ilang dates ang kailangan natin tatandaan when it comes to dividends? Meron tayong tatlong dates. What are those? Date of declaration, date of record, and date of payment. Date of declaration is the date on which the Board of Directors authorized the payment of dividends to shareholders. So dito, nag-a-announce na ang Board of Directors na magbibigay sila or magdidistribute sila ng dividends. Next, sa date of record naman, ito yung date kung kailan naglilista ang corporate secretary ng mga pangalan ng shareholders na entitled makareceive ng dividends. Then for the last one, for the date of payment, it is the date on which the dividends are to be settled. Diyan na natin actually babayaran ang mga dividends. Okay, let's move on to recognition of dividends. When do we recognize dividends? Answer, it will be recognized when the dividend is authorized and is no longer at the discretion of the company. So, alin dun sa tatlong essential dates kung kailan natin unang i-recognize ang dividends? Answer, date of declaration. Tandaan nyo, we initially recognize dividends at date of declaration, not date of settlement. Sige, cash dividends. Madali lang naman to si cash dividends eh. Kasi that is a dividends in a form of cash. Most common type of dividend ang cash dividends. Next, papakita natin kung ano yung mga journal entry at date of declaration, date of record, date of payment. Okay? Sige. For the date of declaration, sabi nga natin kanina, yan yung initial recognition date ng dividends. So debit, retained earnings, credit, dividends payable. Tandaan nyo ang cash dividends, that is under dividends out of earnings. Kaya ang nagiging source ay retained earnings. Date of record. What will be our entry for the date of record? Walang entry dyan. Kasi nga, naglilista lang ng pangalan si corporate secretary. Then last one, for the date of payment, para kang nagbabayad lang ng utang dyan. Debit, liability, credit, cash. Okay? Next. Ito. Medyo complicated ang property dividends. Okay? So, iisa-isahin natin yung mga dapat nyong tatandaan when it comes to property dividends. First, nature niya muna. Ano ba ang nature ng property dividends? That is a distribution of earnings in a form of non-cash assets. So yung kanina, cash dividends, that is in a form of cash. Ang property dividends, that is in a form of non-cash assets. Property dividends is also known as dividends in kind. Now, there will be two accounting issues that will arise when we are accounting for property dividends. What are those issues? Number one, measurement of the dividends payable. Number two, measurement of the non-cash asset to be distributed as property dividend. Okay, sagutin natin yung dalawang issues. For the issue number one, what would be the measurement of the dividends payable? Answer natin, fair value ng non-cash asset. Okay? Fair value ng non-cash asset ang magiging valuation ng dividends payable. But, it is to be adjusted until masettle yan. Hanggat outstanding ang dividends payable, ina-adjust yan. Bakit? Paiba-iba ang fair value ng non-cash asset. Tandaan nyo yan. Kaya, umiiba-iba rin ang measurement ng dividends payable. Next. For number 2, the measurement of the non-cash asset to be distributed as property dividend in accordance with IFRIC 17, that should be the lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to distribute. Ayan magkaiba ang measurement ng dividends payable at nung non-cash asset na i-distribute as property dividend. Tandaan, pag dividends payable, fair value, wala nang iba. Pagdating naman sa measurement ng non-cash asset, it must be the lower of the carrying amount at date of declaration. Tandaan, date of declaration, initial measurement, date, and fair value less cost to distribute at date of declaration. Okay, next. I-assess natin yung asset. Is the asset impaired or not? Paano natin malalaman kung impaired yung asset na yan or hindi? If the carrying amount is lower, then our assessment, hindi pa impaired yung asset. Kasi hindi naman natin gagalawin yung amount nung non-cash asset sa records natin kasi lower naman yung carrying amount niya. Next, if the fair value less cost to distribute ang magiging lower, ano assessment natin? There is impairment. Kasi i-write down natin siya to fair value less cost to distribute. Okay. Drill. Para mas maintindihan niyo yung measurement ng non-cash asset na to. Case 1. Carrying amount, 100. Fair value less cost to distribute, 102. What would be the measurement of the non-current asset held for distribution or NCAFD? Ang sagot natin, it must be the lower amount. Sino dyan? Carrying amount of 100 pesos. Therefore, what will be your assessment? Is the asset impaired or not? Answer, hindi siya impaired. Therefore, zero impairment loss. Okay? Case number 2. Carrying amount, 100. Fair value less cost to distribute, 96. What would be the measurement of the non-current asset held for distribution? Lower amount pa rin, pero sino na siya? Fair value less cost to distribute. Is the asset impaired? Answer, yes. Therefore, you will measure or you will recognize an impairment of 4 pesos. Yung impairment, difference lang yan ng carry amount and fair value less cost to distribute. At mag-a-arise lang yan kapag lower na ang fair value less cost to distribute. Okay? Next. Ito na mga natin, journal entries ha. So first, papakita ko lang muna yung dalawang dates kasi medyo marami tayong entries when it comes to property dividends. Date of declaration. First entry. Dalawa entry natin dito Dalawa yung entry natin. First entry muna. Debit, retained earnings, credit, dividends payable. Kasi dyan natin siya i-recognize initially. Kaya tinanggal ko na siya sa RE at nilipat sa dividends payable. For the second entry, you ready? May dalawa tayong scenario. First scenario, carrying value is lower than fair value less cost to distribute. Then the second scenario, fair value less cost to distribute naman ay mas mababa. Kapag ang CV ay mas mababa sa fair value less cost to distribute, wala tayong impairment loss, tama? Simply reclassify the non-cash asset into non-current asset held for distribution. Okay? Pero kapag mas mababa naman kasi si fair value less cost to distribute, merong impairment. Kaya may dumagdag na account sa kanya. Di ba? Okay. Ano ba nature nung non-current asset held for distribution? That is a current asset. Current asset na siya. Okay? Date of record, no entry pa rin. Kasi naglilista lang dyan yung corporate secretary ng pangalan ng mga shareholders na entitled makareceive ng dividends. Next. Balance sheet date, medyo mas marami siya. Pero relax lang. Iba-ibang assumptions lang ito Iba-ibang assumptions lang. First entry, tandaan nyo dalawa pa rin entry natin dito. Kasi dalawa mini-measure natin. Ano yon? Yung dividends payable and the non-current asset held for distribution. Kaya may iba-ibang entries tayo. For the first entry, dalawa scenario natin. Fair value of the non-current asset held for distribution increase or magdi-decrease. Pag tumaas yung fair value niya, edi dadagdagan mo lang yung dividends payable mo. Saan ka kukuha ng pandagdag? Retained earnings pa rin. Kaya debit RE, credit, dividends payable. Okay? Next. For the second scenario, paano kung bumaba naman yung fair value ng non-current asset held for distribution? Di, babawasan mo yung dividends payable mo. Saan mo ilalagay or ipapasok yung binawas mo sa dividends payable? Retained earnings. That's why, debit, dividends payable, credit, retained earnings. Baliktaran silang dalawa. Madali yung first entry natin. First entry pa lang yon. Second entry. Fair value less cost to sell of the non-current asset held for distribution, decrease, and increase. Dito muna tayo sa first scenario. Paano kung lalong bumaba yung fair value less cost to distribute niya? That is an additional impairment loss. Okay? Next. Paano naman kung tumaas ang fair value less cost to sell? Di may reversal tayo. Masaya tayo sa second scenario. But, there is a catch. For the gain on reversal, it must be limited only to the extent of the impairment loss previously recognized. Tandaan nyo yung rule na yan. Okay? Sa impairment loss, walang limit. Pero pag gain on reversal, may limit. Tandaan nyo. Okay? Limited lang siya dun sa impairment loss na na-recognize nyo na. Naintindihan? Medyo malabo pa? Okay. Drill tayo para mas maintindihan nyo siya. Case 1. Take note, impairment loss recognized, let's say 10 pesos. Actual increase in your fair value less cost to distribute is 8 pesos. How much is the allowable reversal? Ito lang tatandaan nyo. Lower amount pa rin. Lower amount pa rin. So, how much is the allowable reversal? That is 8 pesos. Hindi pa niya kasi nabibreach yung limit na 10 pesos. Okay? Next, case impairment loss recognized, 10. Increase in fair value less cost to distribute, 11. How much is the allowable reversal? Sabi ko nga, lower amount pa rin. So, how much is the lower amount? 10 pesos. Therefore, 10 pesos lang ang allowable reversal. Kasi pag kinuha niyo yung 11 pesos, hindi niyo na masusunod yung rule na binigay ko kanina. Gets? Okay. Then, last set of dates, date of settlement na lang. For the date of settlement, similar to balance sheet date, may iba-iba pang scenario. Pero at least ngayon, mas magaan na ito. Okay? For the first entry, dalawang entries pa rin. For the first entry, pag tumaas ang fair value, pag tumaas ang fair value ng non-current asset held for distribution, dagdagan nyo ulit yung dividends payable. Saan kukuha ng pandagdag? RE. Debit RE, credit dividends payable. Next one. Fair value of the non-current asset held for distribution, bumaba. Therefore, babawasan natin yung dividends payable. Saan natin lalagay yung excess? Balik sa retained earnings. Ganun ba talaga, sir? Sa date of settlement, i-adjust ulit yung dividends payable? Yes. Adjust first before settling. Adjust first before settling. Okay? Then, for the second entry, hindi nyo na kailangang i-adjust yung account ng non-current asset held for distribution. Diretso na tayo sa pagsisettle dito. Diba? If the dividends payable is higher than the existing balance of the asset to be distributed, therefore, there is a gain on settlement. There is a gain on settlement. Tingnan nyo bakit nagkaroon ng gain on settlement? For example, may utang kang 10 pesos, pero yung value lang nung held for distribution mo, 8 pesos. Para kang nagbayad lang ng 8 peso cash for a liability of 10 pesos. Therefore, there is a gain on settlement. Gets? Favorable eh. May utang kang 10 pesos, pero nagbayad ka ng 8 pesos, extinguish agad yung utang mong 10 pesos. Okay? Okay. Pero, kapag mas malaki naman ang value ng asset to be distributed kaysa sa dividends payable, ay, may loss on settlement ka. Why? Bigay ulit tayong assume amounts ha. Utang mo 10 pesos, pero nagbayad ka ng asset worth 12 pesos. Isipin mo, 10 pesos lang utang mo, pero naglabas ka ng 12 pesos. Di ba talo ka? Para ma-settle mo yung 10 pesos na utang, kailangan mo pa magbayad ng 12 pesos with a premium of 2 pesos. Yung premium na 2 pesos, that is already your loss on settlement. Klaro? Okay? Huwag kayo mag-memorize. Maglagay palagi kayo ng assume figures para mas malinaw ang scenario. Tulad ng ginawa ko. Diba? Okay. Then we are done with the complicated dividends. Next, scrip dividends. Ay, madali lang to. Pag sinabi nating scrip dividends, that is a dividend in a form of notes or promissory notes. Okay? So, ito lang mga tatandaan natin ha. Latag ko ulit yung mga relevant dates natin. Date of declaration, date of record. Yung balance sheet date, nilalagay ko lang yan for additional reference. Pero hindi siya kasali sa essential dates. Okay? Then date of payment. Date of declaration. O, di ba? Para lang siyang cash dividends. Kaya siya tinatawag na deferred cash dividends. Debit, RE, credit, dividends payable. Date of record, no entry. Balance sheet date, mag-a-accrue ka lang ng interest. Kasi since this is a dividend that involves notes or promissory notes, usually may accrued interest or may interest yan. Kaya mag-a-accrue ka lang ng interest. Paano yon? Debit, interest expense, credit, interest payable. Clear? Then for the date of payment, debit, dividends payable kasi isa-settle mo na, debit, interest expense kung may additional interest pa, and credit, cash. That would be equal to principal plus interest. Klaro? O, tapos na natin script dividends. Sabi ko sa inyo, madali lang siya eh. Next, share dividends. This is the last dividends. Okay? Ito na rin yung last topic natin for the fourth part of our lecture video. For share dividends, that is a dividend in the form of the company's own shares. This time, para magbayad siya ng dividends, ang i-issue niya dito would be its own share capital naman. Okay? Now, there are two types of share dividends, small and large share dividends. Paano natin malalaman kung small or large yung share dividends? Para masabing small, the share dividend percentage must be less than 20% of the outstanding shares. Tandaan, ang small share dividends, that is less than 20% of the shares outstanding. Kapag nagdeklara ang corporation ng share dividends at pag sinabi niya, magbibigay ako ng 10% share dividends, what will be your classification for that? Small or large? Small. Kasi less than 20% siya. Okay? Pag large naman, rule of exclusion, 20% or more naman. Clear? Okay. Sige. Now, how do we value the share dividends if it is small? How do we value the share dividends if it is large? Pag small, our general rule, the share dividends will be valued at fair value. General rule, fair value siya. Pero, magva-value tayo ng small share dividends at par value if magiging mas mataas ang par value kesa sa fair value. What is the logic behind? What is the logic behind bakit biglang pwede siya maging par value kapag naging mas mataas ang par value? Remember the concept of what we call watered stocks. Pag sinabi natin watered stocks, these are shares issued below par value. And issuing shares below par value is not allowed under our corporation code. That's why, pagdating dito sa small share dividends, pag nagiging mababa yung fair value kesa sa par value, magpa-par value yung valuation natin. Hindi pwede maging mas mababa sa par value. Bawal yon. Okay? So that explains why meron pang isang valuation ang small share dividends. Pero tandaan nyo, general rule is fair value. Next, pag large share dividends naman yan, iisa lang valuation yan, par value. Klaro? Tandaan, pag small, usually fair value. Pero kapag mas mataas na ang par value kaysa sa fair value, magpa-par value yung small share dividends valuation. Okay? Pag large, palaging par value. Journal entries tayo. Nilatag ko ulit yung mga dates natin kanina. So, for the date of declaration, may dalawang scenario. For the small share dividends, under the scenario na mas mataas ang fair value kesa sa par, that will be your entry. Debit, retained earnings, credit, share dividends distributable, and credit share premium. Yung retained earnings, madidebit yan at fair value. For the share dividends distributable, that will be valued at par. At par yan. Then, any amount in excess of par will be credited to share premium. Madali lang yan sa inyo. Basta tatandaan nyo lang, yung amount na i-debit kay retained earnings would be fair value since mas mataas siya sa par value under small share dividends. Next, kapag large share dividends naman yan, you will debit retained earnings at par. Iisa lang naman ang valuation pag large share dividends. Klaro tayo. And credit share dividends distributable at par. Okay? Date of record. Wala pa ring entry. Palaging walang entry sa date of record natin. Balance sheet date. May entry ba tayo? Answer? Wala na. In case of share dividends, there will be no subsequent adjustments in the valuation. Kasi naka-fix na yan sa date of declaration valuation. Klaro? Okay? Then for settlement date, simply reclassify share dividends distributable into share capital. Clear tayo? Okay? Now, di ba sa first video natin, under share premium, meron din tayong nabanggit na declaration and issuance of small share dividends. Ito yun. Nagiging source din siya ng share premium. Di ba? Nakita niyo yung natin, small share dividends? Okay. Then, yung share dividends distributable, hindi pa siya napupunta sa kamay ng shareholder pero entitled na yan sa dividends. Naka-reserve na kasi. Di ba? Para siyang subscribe share capital. Klaro tayo. Then, once issued, reclassify to share capital account. Alright? Last slide. Dividends as expense. Meron ba tayong nire-record na dividends as expense? Answer? Kanina sa mga illustrations natin, wala, di ba? Kasi ang general rule natin, dividends are charged directly to equity. Ano yon? Retained earnings yon. Yung binabanggit kong equity dito, retained earnings. Okay? Pero, ito yung exception. May isang klase ng preference share na kung saan ang dividends niya, nire-report natin yan as expense. Ano yon? Redeemable preference share. Ano yung redeemable preference shares? That is a preference share with mandatory redemption date. So, in essence, maoobliga ang corporation na i-reacquire ulit yung preference share at the redemption date. Therefore, by applying your substance over form concept, ang redeemable preference share, that is, in substance, a financial liability and not an equity item. Okay? Tandaan nyo, substance over form palagi tayo. So in substance, ang mandatory preference share ay ang redeemable preference share that is a financial liability, not an equity shares. Therefore, yung dividends niya, hindi natin yan tinatanggal sa retained earnings. Nire-record natin yan at expense. Nire-record natin yan sa profit or loss as interest expense. Are we clear? Okay? Tandaan nyo, dividends on redeemable preference shares, they will be recognized as interest expense, not a charge to RE. Iba ang nature ng redeemable preference shares sa ibang share capital. And that's it. That's the end of our discussion on dividends. So, dalawang lesson na lang ang natitira sa atin. That is, your retained earnings and the quasi-reorganization. So, refer to the next video for your fifth lesson. That is the retained earnings. Bye-bye!